Duluth woman will be in the audience for President Biden's State of the Union address tomorrow. Representative Pete Stauber invited Sharon McMahon to be his guest. McMahon is a former high school government teacher who made a name for herself on Instagram during the 2020 presidential election. She amassed more than 1 million followers by educating people about how the government works. McMahon has since set up virtual classes for people to learn more about other areas of our nation's politics. Stauber, a Republican, says he picked McMahon because of her background in politics and her dedication to teaching young people about it.
Really what we like about it is it gets people, young people, energized about serving in their communities, whether it's elected official or volunteering or what have you. And it's a really, really good podcast. And
we also learned today that Senator Amy Klobuchar's State of the Union guest is Amanda Barbosa from St. Paul. She's the wife of a former Army helicopter pilot who now has stage 4 colon cancer. She and Klobuchar, a Democrat from Minnesota, are pushing for better care for service members and vets exposed to toxic substances.